Yes, once again, very good morning, girls. So we're discussing about a Sunday morning by Serafin and Joaquin Alvarez Quintero. So we have discussed about already. We have seen about the other. They were also called as the Spanish brothers and the Golden Boys of Madrid Theater. Together, they have written. They have wrote 200 plays which depict the life and manners and speech of the people of Andalusia in southern Spain. And you can see the picture of the authors, and we have also seen that their dramas are remarkable for a vivacious and skilled presentation. And we have given a few points about have told a few points about the Spain, that Spain is a country and the capital for Spain is the Madrid. And you have given the points about told the points about the Andalusia is the most southern area of Europe, and throughout the year you can have we can see a plentiful sun all the year round, and that is called as a wonderful climate. And Andalusia is the name of a region in the Spain where the name is originally written as Andalusia. And you can see the climate of Andalusia, a plentiful sun throughout all the year round. So, and we have discussed about what the title indicate that Sunday morning. It is also a youth or yang. It also means the weathers. Symbolically, it also represents to the weather, which seems to be very pleasant and fresh. And the male and the female protagonist, who is called as Chona Laura and John Gonzalo, they have okay even their the way they behave, okay, though they are, and the physical appearance seems to be as a old age, but the thoughts and the mind is like young or like a youth. So that was we have seen and we have discussed about these things. And the conversation between Don Laura and Don Gonzalo, the heated argument between them, with a hint of a snuff, it turns to become a friendship. They just start with a friend. And we have discussed about Don Laura and Don Gonzalo. They just tell the stories, the past, the previous stories, the past stories of a known friend and a cousin. Don Gonzalo, friend by name called as Gallant Horseman, and Donna Laura, her friend by name called as Laurenti, who is living in the place called as Marcella. In the villa, the villa name is called as Marcella. So here we have stopped the previous session, girls, and still the students are getting logged in. We'll wait for 2 minutes. Let the students get logged in. And before that, girls, the previous chapter which you have completed the notes, just take a pic of it, a click of it, and inbox to my WhatsApp number. So already I have posted in the group the notes, the previous chapters notes I have posted it in the group. So complete it and take a pic of it and inbox to my WhatsApp number. And for the seminar which I have given for the last chapter, which I have given the seminar, be ready, girls. I have allotted your students, so be ready. In upcoming week, I'll be handling for science or commerce. Yeah, so I think in the next upcoming week, I'll be handling for you guys. So you be ready with your seminars, girls. Yes. So here we were I was explaining about Don Gonzalo and Chona Laura. That Don Gonzalo, he tells about the gallant lover, and Chona Laura, she starts to tell about the woman whom she knew, who was in the place called as Marcilla. In that Marcilla is also called as a villa. The villa name is called as a Marcilla. So in page number 44, yes, in page number 44, can someone just read it? Let unmute your. Yes. So Donna Laura and insulted your cousin. There was a quarrel and later a duel. As at sunrise on the beach, and the merchant was badly wounded. My cousin had to conceal himself for a few days and later to fly. So Donna Laura replies, "You seem to know the story well, and so do you. I have explained that a friend repeated it to me as my cousin did to me. This is Laura. Why tell him? He does not suspect. She is entirely innocent." So Jonah Laura replies, "And was it you by any chance who advised your cousin to forget Laura?" So Don Gonzalo, why my cousin never forget her? How do you account then for this conduct? So Don Gonzalo replies, I will tell you, the young man took refuge in my house, fearful of the consequences of a duel with a person highly regarded in that locality. From my home, we went to Sevilla and then came to Madrid. He wrote Laura many letters, some of them in verse, but undoubtedly they were intercepted by her parents. For she never answered at all. Gonzalo, then in despair, believing his love lost to him forever, joined the army, went to Africa, and there in a trench met a glorious death, grasping the flag of Spain and whispering the name of his beloved Laura. What an atrocious lie! So here you get the meaning for glorious, impressive, and the meaning for atrocious, extremely bad or cruel. Extremely bad or cruel. Atrocious, extremely bad or cruel. Yes. What an atrocious lie. Okay, next continuation. I could not have killed myself gloriously. So, Jonah Laura, you must have been prostrated by the calamity. Yes, indeed, Senora, as if he were my brother. I presume, though, on the contrary, that Laura in a short time was chasing butterflies in garden, indifferent to regret. So, Jonah Laura, no, Senor, no. It is a woman's way. Even if it were woman's way, the silver maiden was not of that disposition. My friend awaited news for days, months, a year, and no later came. One afternoon, just at sunset, as the first stars were appearing, she was seen to leave the house and with quickening steps went her way toward the beach where a loud had risked his life. She wrote his name on the sand and then sat down upon a rock, her gaze fixed upon the horizon. The waves murmured their eternal trinity and slowly crept up to the rock where the maiden sat. The tide rose with a boom and swept her out to sea. So the meaning for Trinity. THRENODY, Song of Lamentations. Song of Lamentations. Song of Lamentation, and again the meaning for lamentation, the passionate expression of grief or sorrow. The way of expressing of grief or sorrow or weeping. The passionate expression of grief or sorrow or weeping. Yes, so that is the meaning for Trinity. Yes, so Don Gonzalo replies, good heavens. John and Laura, the fishermen of that shore who often tell the story, affirm that it was a long time before the waves washed away that name written on the sand. You will not get ahead of me in decorating my own funeral. So Don Gonzalo, she lies worse than I do. So underline this point. So Don Oral replies, poor Laura. So Don Gonzalo, poor Gonzalo, aside, I will not tell him that I'm married 2 years later. So this is inner voice which was told by Donna Laura. So here we see that there was a quarrel between Gonzalo and the merchant. So the previous session which was discussing that Gonzalo had been to that place under the near the window of Laura, the silver maiden, and later unexpectedly we find that gallant lover was there and he starts to insult. So later we find that there was a quarrel between Gonzalo and the merchant. So later the at the sunrise the people found that the rich merchant was severely wounded by Gonzalo. So who has been wounded? Gonzalo was being wounded. So later, as merchant was a rich man in that city. See here we find that the rich merchant was very severely wounded by Gonzalo. So when the people come to know that, because see here we find that merchant was very rich girl. So he was a very rich man in that city. He was highly regarded in that locality. So later when Gonzalo comes to know that he was a rich merchant in that locality, the merchant was very rich in that locality, Gonzalo becomes very apprehensive of the consequences what he should face, the upcoming consequences. So what does he do? He decides to conceal for a few days. So he just wanted to go away very far for a few days, to conceal for few days. So Gonzalo, he leaves that place and he moves to his hometown by name called as Sevilla. Okay, so from there, why, what is the reason why does he move from that place? Because he has wounded the rich merchant. So he just thinks about what are the consequences he need to face. So later, after moving to his native place, and then later he comes to the place called as Madrid. So Gonzalo, he tries to communicate with Laura through the letters. Later has a story, okay, has a story continues here. Here we see that Gonzalo, after he has wounded the rich merchant in that locality, he moves to the place. Later, he moves to the place called as Madrid, and later he just wanted to have a communication with Laura through the letters. But all of his attempts have been failed. What is the reason? The reason is that because Gonzalo, he didn't receive any reply from Laura, because Laura parents intercepted. It means that they didn't give any letters which they have received to Laura. So later we see, then in the deep despair, believe that his love has been lost, so he joins the army in Africa, and he meets a glorious death in the battlefield, or which is also called as a warfield. So who is telling this? Gonzalo is trying to tell that after he didn't get any letters, the reply from Laura, in a very deep despair. He didn't had any other choice. So he thought that his love has been lost. So later he joins in the army in the Africa. So there he tells that he has met a very glorious death. So he also tells that while a gallant lover was in his last breath, he whispers the name of his beloved Laura, Laura. So before his death, he tells that he was whispering, okay, he was whispering is lover's name by name called as Laura, Laura, beloved's name. So this is all about what Gonzalo said about gallant lover. So we are discussing about, we're talking about gallant lover and woman by name called as Laurenti, who was also called as Silver Maiden in Marsila. So later, after listening to the story of Gonzalo about gallant horseman, here Laura, she tells what an atrocious lie. It means that it was an lie, because she knew that Don Gonzalo is still alive. Who knew that? Donna Laura knew that. So she tells that it was an atrocious lie. So, and Laura mutters about the story that is cleverly created by Gonzalo. See, but she still pretends to sympathetic with him, and also she tells that he must have been distressed by the calamity. So, taking this as a very strong point, Gonzalo, he also pretends that saying that it is indeed a calamity, but in the same way he also tries to express his feelings there, okay, his resentment, and he presumes there. So still he continues to tell that Laura would have forgotten gallant horseman, and she would have spent days in chasing butterflies in the garden without any regret. Later we see that Donna Laura, she protests, saying no, and Gonzalo comment that it is a woman's way. So that is what here you can find it. No, even if it is wear a woman's way. So here we can find the Silver Maiden was not of that disposition. So later we see that Laura, she narrates a story of her own version. Now we have seen Don Gonzalo, he was explaining, he started to tell about gallant lover in his own version. So again we see that Laura, she narrates a story in a very new different way with her new version. So what she tells that about the Silver Maiden, that she tells that Silver Maiden awaited for the news from gallant horsemen for many years, for a year, and later she waited for years, but she didn't receive any letters from the gallant horseman. So one day she goes to the sea, and after the sunset, and later she writes the name of gallant horseman on the sand, and she sits on the rock. So what will happen? The waves just took Laura into the sea, and the name on the sand, which was being written by Laura, was also being swept, or it was being washed away by the waves. So here this is a story which is being told by Laura. So it means that even Donna Laura has been swept away by the water, okay, by the waves. It means that she's no more, she's been dead. So this story was being told by Laura. So now Gonzalo matters that himself that Laura lies worse than Gonzalo. So both knew that what they were telling was not a true one, about their death. Okay, what they were telling about the death was a not true thing. But later Laura tells to herself. So that is what here the point. See here, Don Gonzalo, he tells she lies worse than I do. So poor Laura, poor Gonzalo. I will not tell him that I married 2 years later. So Donna Laura tells I will. So I here represents to Donna Laura, who is also called as, who is also known as a silver maiden in that Marcella. So she tells to herself that she got married after the 2 years. She never reveals that outside. So here we see that Don Gonzalo and Donna Laura, they realize that they are the same young beloveds of Marcella. At this point, they realize, okay, they identify each other. They were the young lovers or the beloveds of Marcella, whom they have been separated by the fate. But here we see that they create the fictitious stories here, and they try to conceal their identity. They try to not reveal their identities as a gallant man and Laura Laurenti. Here the reason why they won't reveal their true identity is, if they reveal their identity, both of them would have accused each other for deceiving, right? For deceiving each other. And see, they have changed a lot in their appearance. And one more another point here, important point, is that even they have changed a lot in their appearance. See, now they both are in their 70s. Thus, that is why they don't want to reveal their identity. They wanted to remain as a gallant horseman, and even Donna Laura, she wanted to remain as a beauty, as a silver maiden. So as the story is moving on, we see that Don Gonzalo and Donna Laura, they explain, okay, they started to tell about the cousin and about the friend who is called as gallant horseman and also the silver maiden. But after the stories, they come to know that they, the both the young beloveds of Marcella, but they won't reveal their identity. Why they don't reveal their identity? The reason is that they because if they reveal, they would have accused each other. Okay, they should accuse each other for deceiving the other, and they will ask the questions, why you didn't wait for me, and why Donna Laura didn't wait for her. So here we see that. And one more important point is that they don't want to reveal their identity because they wanted to remain in the imagine of that as a gallant horseman and as the beauty of that silver maiden, because now the physical appearance has been changed. Yes, we'll move to the next. So Don Gonzalo, assigned in 3 months, I ran off to Paris with a ballet dancer. Fate is curious. Here are you and I, complete strangers met by chance, discussing the romance of old friends long ago. We have been conversing as if we were old friends. Yes, it is curious considering the ill-natured prelude to a conversation. To our conversation. Yes, finger. So, Donna Laura, you stayed away the bus. I was unreasonable, perhaps. Yes, that was evident. Are you coming again tomorrow? Most certainly. If it is sunny morning, and not only if will I not scare away the birds, but I will bring a few grams. So this points you need to underline these lines. Thank you very much. Birds are grateful and repay attention. I wonder where my maid is, Petra. Aside looking at Laura, whose back is turned. No, no, I will not reveal myself. I am grotesque now. So here you get the meaning for grotesque, distorted, a very ugly or comically distorted figure or image. Is girls the meaning? Distorted or very ugly or comically distorted figure or image. Is better that she recall the gallant horseman who passed daily beneath the window, tossing flowers. Here she comes, the Juanito. He plays havoc with the nursemaids. Aside looking at Gonzalo, whose back is turned, no, I am too sadly changed. It is better he should remember me as a black-eyed girl tossing flowers as he passed among the roses in the garden. Juanito enters by right, Petra by left. She has a bunch of flowers in her hand. She has bunch of flowers in her hand. Well, Petra, at last, Juanito, you are late. So Petra tells to Donna Laura, the guard gave me these violets for you, Senora. How very nice. thank him for me. They are fragrant. My dear lady, this has been a great honor and a great pleasure. So, Donna Laura, it has also been a pleasure to me. So, Don Gonzalo replies, goodbye until tomorrow. Donna Laura, until tomorrow, Don Gonzalo, if it is sunny. So, Donna Laura, a sunny morning, will you go to your bed? No, I will come to this if you do not object. This bench is at your disposal, and I will surely bring the gram. So, Donna Laura, tomorrow then. Don Gonzalo, tomorrow. Laura walks away toward right, supported by a maid Gonzalo. Before leaving with Juanito trembling and with a great efforts to pick up the violets, Laura dropped. Just then Laura turns her head and surprises in picking up the flowers. So Juanito, what are you doing, Seno? Juanito, Don Gonzalo does. Juanito, wait. Don't know Laura, as it is he. So underline these points. Underline these lines. Don Gonzalo, it is she and no mistake. So John Laura and Don Gonzalo wave farewell. Can it be that this is she? Even is it she? They smiled once more as if she were again at the window and he below in the rose garden, and then disappear upon the arms of their servants, curtain closes. So here we see that both of them, Don Gonzalo and Donna Laura, they made up the fictitious stories that gallant horseman had a glorious death. But in reality, what here we see is that after he had fought with merchant, okay, the rich man in that locality, after he had fought with that merchant, he went to Valencia, and later after the 3 months, what did he do? He went to Paris, and there he married a ballet dancer. So that was a true thing which has happened, but Don Gonzalo tells that he had a glorious death in the army. But the true fact is that after he had moved to Valencia, and later after the 3 months, he went to the place called as Paris, and there he married the ballet dancer. On the other hand, we see Laura, who was waiting for horseman, and she also gets married after 2 years. But she tells that even she was being swept away by the waves. But see, throughout the play, we can find the humor here, girls. Okay, see, even after they're realizing each other, they pretend to be not. Okay, why? What is the reason? They frame the stories, or they created the fictitious stories about their own deaths. They started to tell a story about their own deaths. The reason is that we come across here that both have changed in their physical appearance. Donna Laura has become 70-year-old, and she uses a parasol, which is a umbrella, and also she uses a cane for the support. See, that is why Donna Laura, after listening to Gonzalo praise of her beauty as a silver maiden, she feels very ashamed to confess that she was a old silver maiden of Marsella. Why? What is the reason? Because she wanted to be remembered as a black-eyed girl who was tossing the flowers as a horseman when he was passing there among the roses, okay, in that garden. So in the same manner, even here we see Gonzalo, even he knew that he was a old, and so he wishes to keep his image as a gallant horseman. When we just talk about the gallant horseman, we remember that he used to pass every day under the window by on the horseback. Okay, he used to move on that horseback nearby that window. That is why they both think that to not conceal their identity. And see, at the end of the story, we see that Juanito, he enters the park by right, and Petra, she enters by the left side. And Petra, what does she do? She gets a bunch of violets in her hand, girl. So this bunch of violets were being given to her by the guard. See, Petra, she gives that violets to Donna Laura, and as she takes the violets, as Donna Laura, she takes the violets from the maid, few violets will fall to the ground. So this is very important here, where they realize that the back scene, that when the few violets have fall to the ground, and Don Gonzalo, he tells that it has been a great honor and a great pleasure to meet Laura. So as the story is just moving on, we just see that the final conversation which Don Gonzalo and Donna Laura had. Don Gonzalo, he tells that it was very great, and it was a very pleasure to meet Laura. Even so, Laura also, she feels the same, and she tells that even she is honored and pleasured to meet Gonzalo. So they both depart. So before taking the leave, okay, before they, as they're moving to leave from each other, they formally thank each other for having met. So that is a formal conversation what they have. And later we see that, and they both think that it's been a great pleasure to meet each other, and they both ensure, okay, they come to a point or ensure that they come to the park the next day. So if it is a sunny, so, and they wave farewell by telling goodbye until tomorrow. So that is what here we see. So here last, at the last, we see the title Sunny Morning. So the title here, the Sunny Morning, is very much tuned with this theme. So what is this theme here? The male and the female protagonists, Don Gonzalo and Donna Lara, are in their evenings of their life. It means that of their old age. It means that they are old in their physical appearance. See, at this stage, their physical changes did not allow them to reveal their identity to each other. So why didn't they reveal their identity? The reason is because of the physical changes what they have. So both of them think to look forward to sunny morning day after day. So here there are several instances of irony in the story which has been built by the other girl. See, the protagonist in the play, they seem to be very old, but their mentality, how they behave, everything, it serves to be like young and very fresh and very pleasant, like how the sunny morning, which is brought up in a very humorous way. So finally we read, okay, that Don Gonzalo, he assures that he gets the breadcrumbs for the pigeons the next morning when he comes to the park. And Laura also, she walks away towards the right, supported by the maid. Okay, she just walks towards right, and she takes the support of her maid. And later we see Gonzalo, before leaving the park, with a great effort, what does he do? He tries to pick up the violets, okay, which had been dropped by Laura. So this point is very interesting and very important. So with the effort, with a very great effort, with the support of his servant, he tries to pick up the flowers which was being dropped by Laura. So as he picks up that flowers, Laura turns her head, and she surprises him picking up that flowers. So then finally they tell that, Donna Laura tells, okay, yes, it is he. Can it be that? So here you can find it, girls, here. Yes. At the final, it is she and no mistake. Can it be that is she? So heavens, is it she? So finally, after this incident, they recall their past, that Laura is near the window and Gonzalo below in the rose garden, and they disappear upon the arms of their servant. So they just move from that place, and both of them wave farewell and leave the place as a friend. So finally they move as a friend, though they know that they were the old the they were the beloved of the previous, okay, they were the old, but still they won't reveal their identity. The reason